the work of an Iowa-based organization, Bailing Out Benji, kind of helped spark this investigation. Can you tell me about that?
That resolution filed in King County Superior Court requires the company to pay the state $3.75 million with interest.
Bailing Out Benji regularly looks through these records of dogs' movement from state to state.
Bailing Out Benji
played a key part in unraveling a nationwide puppy scheme.
Bailing Out Benji,
an organization that's been working across the country to stop the pipeline of puppy mill breeders.
Bailing Out Benji.
I will use my voice because they don't have one, and I will keep doing it until there are no more puppy mill dogs. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to this week's episode of Truth, Lies, and Puppy Mills. My name is Mindy, and I'm here with Alexis and Kristen, and today we're going to continue the conversation about laws and pitfalls by talking a little more about sham rescues. It's a term that we helped kind of coin in this industry with the puppy laundering, and then talk about retail rescues and unethical rescues and all of these different terms that the public kind of uses, and it confuses everyone. So, Kristen, you're shaking your head like you're confused already.
Yeah, I'm excited because this is something that I don't know. When you say like these terms the public uses, I don't know that the public does. As the public, as the representative here of the public,
That's fair.
I feel like it's like shelters and rescues. And first of all, I feel like a lot of people don't know the difference between shelters and rescues,
That's
like
true
in the
too.
community.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's like there's one source where you adopt pets from, and there's one source where you buy pets from. But also, I hear people all the time talking about adopting pets from breeders. So I honestly don't know that the public in general gets the nuance of different levels of rescues, types of rescues, like all of that stuff behind it. So as I hear you people having these conversations, as we have these conversations on social media, and I'm like, whoa, this is a whole thing. That's why I'm like, let's go.
And
like,
that's
what do
such
you
a-
mean when you say all these things?
Yeah. And that's such a good perspective because, like, in my world, I hear retail rescue every day.
Never heard that phrase before.
And
came
I
here.
think it's probably it's all policy driven. I feel like we get really heated and both sides use these inflammatory phrases to kind of attack one another.
Yeah.
So for us, it feels like these terms are used daily.
Yeah.
But yeah, the general public has no idea.
And I don't know that I'd ever heard sham rescue. I know what a sham is and I know what a rescue is, so I can infer what that means. But like just watching the news or, you know, like when there's a puppy mill bust or whatever, like I don't recall having ever heard the term sham rescue, like somebody was busted as a sham rescue or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's that insider talk.
Yeah. So like we'll kind of back up. The sham rescue,
Yeah, let's start with definitions.
for us is really the only one we can define. And that is when a breeder or a broker gets a nonprofit status to sell commercially bred puppies in cities, counties, or states where it's illegal to do so.
And they're selling as a rescue.
Yes. So when we were talking a few episodes ago about California and Chicago, we saw Jack's Puppies get their dealer license in Iowa as a rescue. We saw them get their 501c3 status federally. And then they would sell 8-week-old puppies to Illinois stores as quote unquote rescue puppies. But their litter mates, their exact litter mates, were going to Florida to a pet store as commercially bred puppies.
Okay.
So when we are talking about sham rescues, this means it's like a front. It is a shell company in order for them to filter puppies through, usually to skirt laws, pet store laws.
Because if we remember, those retail bans say that like pet stores can't sell dogs, so they have to source from rescues or shelters. And so they created this sham rescue to make it seem like they're a rescue, giving puppies to the pet stores. But when you look deeper, there's a lot of money transactions going on.
Yeah. So basically you tell a breeder, you can't do this. Breeders can't do this. Rescues can. And the breeder's like, cool, I am now a rescue.
Yeah. Right. And and it's funny because like in our talks over the last year, we've really found like 2 brokers doing this for the most part. There are a few other examples of sham stuff that's popping up, but like to the level that we were seeing it. But we've heard from other brokers in this space who were like, well, yeah, we kind of talked about maybe doing something like that when California was doing its thing. And so this broker, for example, was saying like, yeah, I set up as 501c3. I was ready to do it. My lawyer stopped me and said, look at the law and then look at the judge. are you in California going to get a judge who cares about the letter of the law or the spirit of the law? And that made this person be like, okay, I'm not touching that industry. And they luckily had a lawyer who prevented them from making poor decisions. But in the case we saw, the two different cases we saw in California, the brokers who were associated and the pet stores, the owners that were associated, were fined hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. So we were proving that this was a sham shell company in that case, those cases.
Okay.
So in our work, because we've been in the Puppy Kingpin podcast, which talks about this pretty exclusively, we've been in the Attorney General cases because of sham rescues. Now people email us and ask all the time, is this rescue legit?
Yeah.
Is this rescue someone I should adopt from? And 5 years ago, it was a lot easier for us to be like, yes, adopt. Don't worry, go. Always adopt from everybody. And now we're seeing there are a lot of different ways that rescues are operating their business, and not all of them are as ethical as we wish they would be. And so
now we've stepped away from, we're no longer talking about here's a breeder or a broker who is intentionally portraying themselves a rescue. Now we're talking about this is a legit rescue, but still reasons to be concerned.
Yeah. That's where we say, like, oh, there's unethical and ethical breeders, and there are ethical and unethical rescues.
Right.
And it really comes down to the practices that each are doing. But people do get them confused with sham rescues because, like, well, you think, oh, it's an unethical rescue, like, must be a sham, right? They're doing something that you wouldn't suspect a legit rescue would do. But when we look at it, it's like not quite. It doesn't quite fit that definition of sham because it's got that specific association with it was created to launder puppies to places that they can't be sold. Not that it is unethical to do that, but these rescues still they have unethical practices rather than doing that like one specific thing that makes them a sham.
Yeah, and so when we're using the phrase sham rescue, it's a noun. So like we're not using the adjective sham to describe this rescue as in saying this rescue is doing something that's not above board. We're actually like, this is a sham rescue is a label we have given to a specific group of people, and that are the breeders, brokers who are portraying themselves as rescues. So I think when just the average person hears sham rescue, they're just thinking like that's sham is the adjective, this rescue is doing something shady. But when we talk about it, specifically sham rescue, we are specifically talking about the breeders, brokers. But we also are seeing cause for concern in rescues who are not the breeder, broker, sham rescues. But
and before we get into that part of it, let's talk a little bit about licensing requirements for rescues, because when we're talking about this episode today, it is kind of through that lens of policy. And so when we're at the Capitol, when we're at these city council meetings and we're talking about humane ordinances and trying to ban or whatever everyone's working on, these groups are often brought up in a negative sense. So as advocates are trying to pass a humane, quote unquote, humane pet store bill, the pet industry comes in and they say, what about the retail rescues? What about the unlicensed rescues? These people aren't even regulated. And so they really kind of highlight the pain areas that we have on our side, because again, ethics, there are unethical breeders, there are ethical breeders, right? And it's the same in our world, like Alexis mentioned, but it's not defined in the sense that most states don't have rescue licenses. Most states don't have inspection processes for rescues. Even in Iowa, where we had the Jack's Puppies issue, we don't have a separate rescue license. In Iowa, you're a dealer because you're getting animals and you're trading animals out. You're not a shelter, you are a dealer in our state. So you're still kind of like overseen by an agency. But in California, no breeder laws, no rescue laws. Minnesota has breeder laws, no rescue laws. So every state, just like we're seeing with breeders, every state is so different with how they handle it. That now customers, when they come to us, they're like, okay, well, is this person legitimate? What do we say? Well, yeah, they're licensed if they can be licensed. Yeah, they have a 501c3 if they have a 501c3. So it's like, where is our line when we're promoting adoption? Do we blindly promote adoption to get animals adopted? Or are we actually, and in some cases the answer is yes, are we actually pushing people towards those unethical rescues? Okay. Do you want to talk about New Jersey a little bit?
Yeah, we have gotten so many research emails about this one specific rescue. Should I name drop?
I mean, they're in the news.
They're in the news. Okay. We get so many emails in our research email from people about this one rescue, Pixies and Paws, and they work in like the New Jersey area. I think they can work a little bit in like the East Coast as well, but mostly we see them in New Jersey. But I've gotten so many emails from people who have adopted from them, who have fostered from them, that they're doing some shady stuff, which includes meeting people in random places with a van, handing off puppies, handing off bags of pills, like having outrageous adoption fees. And like, this is like fosters that are concerned about the puppies. And then they like, oh, well, how much would it take to adopt them? And then it's thousands of dollars. So they're stuck in this situation of like, hey, this interaction felt shady. I didn't like how this worked out.
And now I don't want to give my puppy back.
Yes, and now I don't want to get my puppy back. And there was a specific lady too that had come to us, and like she was contacting the police. She was contacting lawyers because she was fostering, did not want to give the dog back, but Pixies and Paws was like applying pressure to her to get the dog back once they realized like, oh, she didn't feel comfortable with this situation, but she also didn't want to pay such an exorbitant fee for the puppy to be adopted. So it's just people that have kind of like found out the hard way interacting with this rescue, which you think rescue, oh, that they're above board. Maybe they just like, they want to help animals, but then the experience has been a little bit different and they're like, hey, this doesn't feel right. So we've gotten so many emails about Pixies and Paws, and it's kind of that hard way of like, as far as I know, New Jersey doesn't technically have anything to like help people in this situation when they're dealing with a rescue that doesn't exactly feel legit. So all we've been able to do is like say, hey, like file a complaint with the Attorney General. Like that's pretty much what we can do. But that's an example of, you know, a rescue that is maybe not doing the most ethical things, and one we've also tracked getting animals specifically from like Ohio commercial breeders,
Unlicensed.
That's what I was going to ask. Like, do we in our research have the ability then to, so normally we're looking at like, what's this breeder and broker doing? Do we have the ability to look and say, okay, what is this rescue doing? Where are they getting these dogs?
We look
from?
at everything.
We look at everything. We get everything. So when I do like FOIA requests, see if they're like a 3-month or 6-month increments, we get everything. So we sort through everything and we see everything, and we have the potential to audit things as we did in a recent project. But yeah, we can see what rescues and shelters, if they're getting dogs outside of state. Sadly, there are a lot of places we can't get any internal movement because CVIs, for like certificates of veterinary inspection, they're really only for like when you travel outside of state lines. So we can only tell when something's happening between states and not so much internally. But we do get to see who's buying what. Like we can see everyone, the travels, the rescues, the pet stores. Yeah.
And Pixies and Paws was on our radar before customers were complaining.
Okay.
So because of how many, and that's kind of what tips us off, right? Because we look at everything.
Yeah.
We see how many breeder dogs go to rescues.
Yes.
And there are certain things we're looking for that tip us off.
Yeah.
So like in the Midwest, I mean, that's where we're based.
Yeah.
So many rescues and shelters get dogs from breeders because of the nature of how messy it is in our state, right?
Yeah.
We have so many commercial breeders and they do dump dogs on rescues, on shelters. Sometimes the state gets involved and says, you know, you have to downsize. So some of the dogs go to a rescue. So dogs go from breeders, go to rescues for all sorts of reasons. But we look at that and we try to find that nuance. And when we are noticing that a New Jersey rescue or a Colorado rescue are getting hundreds of puppies, like 10-week-old puppies, 11-week-old puppies, like we are seeing that they are, whether it's intended or not, they are a B market for these breeders. So we're not seeing the adult dogs coming. We're not seeing surrenders.
Which is what you would expect. If the breeder is being told they need to downsize, they should be getting rid of some of the older breeding dogs or the ones that are ready to retire.
Right.
Not the puppies that are lucrative that they could be selling for a lot of money. Those are not the ones they're going to dump.
Right. Right. And so like there's a great rescue here in Iowa. They get a lot of breeder dogs in because of their, like where they are in this state, right? So they do get a lot of retired breeding dogs in, and sometimes puppies. Their adoption fees are like $300. Like you and I, we all see how cute those dogs are.
Yeah.
We talk about that all the time.
Yeah.
Like their adoption fees cover the cost of the vetting,
Right.
which is what the general public thinks when you're adopting, right?
That's what I
Shelters and
expect.
rescues, you expect it to be pretty even.
Yeah.
Some rescues will have slightly higher adoption fees for puppies to cover the cost of vetting for the seniors. Like, everyone has their own thing they do. So there is still an ethical way to rescue, like, even older puppies. But in the cases that we're talking about, the puppies come into the rescue for however much they paid for them. And I assume we've been approached by brokers, and this is before our field research work, kind of early on, but brokers would reach out to Bailing Out Benji and say, we don't want these puppies. Do you know anyone who'll pay $150 per puppy? I'm like, LOL, no, we don't, because we don't pay for dogs, right? But there is a market. There is someone who will pay $150 to quote unquote rescue a puppy, because then they can adopt the puppy out for $1,000, $1,500.
Yeah.
And it's a desired breed, so they know they're going to have an easier time moving that dog through their system and getting that money.
Yeah, and it has that rescue word attached to it rather than like buying, because there's so much like buying is a loaded word. There's a lot of shame around buying, and so that's why the adopt don't shop is so loud. And I think it makes people feel comfortable and maybe not looking so much into like the rescue side or the things we see behind the scenes and questioning, hey, actually these are coming from like high commercial breeding areas or like high like puppy mill areas. The public doesn't get to see that. All they see is the rescue word and like, oh, I'm rescuing a puppy. Like,
and when we're having this conversation, I want to say, like, we're coming at it from a place of, again, no judgment, but we're laying it all out. So people who are listening, like, don't feel like we're trying to slander rescues or anything like that. It's more like, here's just what's happening and what we're actually physically seeing.
Yeah, and my brain always wants to go to giving people the benefit of the doubt. And like, so when I hear things, so like I was saying, I was looking at a rescue website, looking at puppies, because my gosh, the algorithm, let me tell you, since I have started working here, my feed is full of dogs now.
Mine is
so
just puppy ads.
As I was scrolling, I was noticing like at this one rescue, like this dog's 400, this dog's 200. And I was like, and so my brain goes to, okay, well, the reason they're charging that fee is because they have costs associated with vetting, with foster care. I know they're providing, you know, the families with all the food for the dog, like all that stuff. I get it. But why would one be more than the other, unless you're talking like a 200-pound dog and a 20-pound dog, which it wasn't. And so then my brain goes to, okay, they're charging more for this one because it's a very adorable desired breed dog versus this one that's a mixed breed, you know, whatever. And so then I'm like, okay, how do I feel about that? And just, so I kind of just try to process through like, what's the motivation? And I can see, you know, rescues, when we talk about buying these dogs from breeders, like I can see how you get there and how you can fit that into your model. It's just wrestling with like, how do I feel about that? Like, and I don't know that that's it's not black and white. It's like everything else we talk about.
Fair. I do think too, like when the general public would see like puppies, like a couple $100 for a dog, like, yeah, you're like, okay, a couple $1,000 for a dog. Like we said, it's like, okay, well, that's branching into like how much you would pay for an actual dog if you went to a breeder. And that's when you're like, oh, wait a minute, like that doesn't seem right. Because I think, well, rescues and shelters tend to get like discounted, right? Is that like discounted care and treatment? They have ways of getting that. So like it is still an expense they get on. And like the couple hundred, you would think, even if there's a price difference, you might want to leverage a breed that is more desirable and get a little bit more money on it, like Minnie mentioned, to like offset the cost. But like when you're paying thousands of dollars for every adoptable puppy dog, it's like, did the cost of care really cost that much?
I feel like there's a place where it shifts from like understandable to like, whoa, hold on, something just happened. And like defining where that shift takes place is the hard part. You can't be like, as soon as you do this, now we're like, nope, not ethical.
Because like, so we posted this in our volunteer group, right? And we had said, hey, Alexis and I are working on this thing. We're noticing a rescue has bought, it's like 350 puppies from a broker in our state. That is problematic because they get from the same people we complain about all the time, people violations. So we know this broker is not getting from great sources. But this rescue is getting 100 puppies in one transport. 100 puppies that are between like 8 to 9 weeks and 14 weeks old. We went through and tracked every single puppy that rescue got over the course of a year. all of them were less than 3 months old.
And all coming from this broker.
Yeah, and we couldn't find them on social media or their website. Like,
so the puppies, once they get into that state, we weren't seeing them necessarily getting adopted out, like through Adopt a Pet, through the Facebook page. So now we're learning through our channels, right? Because we're really good at what we do. We're learning that this group is likely giving those dogs to other rescues in their state, which is not uncommon. Rescues work together to get dogs out all the time. But now those dogs may be getting adopted out in communities where it's like, I'm walking my 12-week-old Bernedoodle puppy. Do you want to adopt it? File your application and you can have this 12-week-old puppy for $2,000. And it's like, so now we're seeing kind of, again, it's that bee market.
Yeah.
And so if our goal, bailing out Benji's goal, is to end puppy mills, and we're trying to shut off that cruel pipeline, what does that mean for those puppies that didn't get sold to a pet store? Should they go to this rescue who is paying for them and is becoming that bee market outlet? Or should the breeders have to feel that responsibility of your puppies, the animals you brought into the world, have no space. They have no place to go. Now your job, your responsibility is to find them a place to go, right? And so that's kind of the goal. It's to put the responsibility back on breeders to handle rehoming, to not overbreed. And if we're talking about pet overpopulation and everyone wants to blame puppy mills, we have to acknowledge that if we're becoming a bee market, it doesn't matter to them how many dogs are left over, because a rescue or someone else will buy those puppies.
So it's a supply and demand situation, and some of these rescues are creating a demand that continues the cycle, and the folks that are getting the dogs from the rescues are not folks who would have bought from the breeder because they want to rescue. They think they're rescuing. Basically, that rescue has just become the broker. So now they're buying from a breeder thinking that they're rescuing. That rescue is creating a demand for that breeder to keep producing puppies. Whereas remove the rescue from that scenario, the breeder has more dogs than they can get rid of. It's now costing them money, so they need to scale back. And the consumer is finding this dog they want to rescue at a rescue where the dog has actually been rescued, not purchased from a breeder.
I just think about like the transparency issue was a big thing.
That's as I talked that through, I was like, hold on, that end user is that like adopt, don't shop, and they're like, I'm gonna rescue this dog.
And then they're telling people proudly, but look, I adopted my Bernedoodle for 12 weeks old. You can too, go to this rescue.
But the method of how they got there, and then the public not knowing where those puppies actually came from, that creates also another like ethical issue. Because there are people out there that are doing this with their full chest, that they are finding ways to rehome dogs, that there are parts of the pet selling industry that are trying to rehome animals in unique ways. And there are some rescues that have advertised that this is what they do, but there are also those that aren't doing it. Or like there's even a pet store that full on advertises they have misfit mutts and that's how they're selling them. So
they're the imperfect puppies that are the same ones likely going to the rescues, or the puppies that aged out. So they're called misfits or bee puppies. Like we've heard these terms in the pet industry through our field research. They tell us what they see from the rescue side, and then we see that in our data.
But that's the difference though, is like they're letting people know, like, this is exactly how I got these puppies. This is what you're signing up for if you choose to adopt from me or if you choose to buy from me. But those other ones, like that rescue getting puppies from this big broker in Iowa and then having them in Colorado, it's like, well, are you telling people? Does your board know? Like, that's how you're using your money? Like, what's going on?
People money. People donating to this rescue to rescue dogs from bad breeding situations. But really, the rescue is just purchasing dogs from a breeder.
And not it's puppies. Right?
It's
like,
puppies.
And I want to say that because like this is where we kind of get into the gray area because there are rescues that get dogs that are retired. And whether or not you're okay with paying, sometimes they pay a small fee. Sometimes they're paying like the CVI cost to get the dog across state lines. Like when people are rescuing the old mama dogs and the dad dogs, like I think that's a sense of responsibility in the rescue community. Like, we feel like we should.
Mhm.
What we're noticing is this trend of puppies flowing in.
Yeah.
And I know those puppies were brought into this world. We are not advocating for anything cruel or inhumane to happen to them. But when I'm protesting, when I was in front of Divegs and I was with my full chest telling people, when you walk by, he'll order fewer next week.
Yeah.
Because he's learned, you're not buying. Those puppies are going to go on sale cheaper and cheaper, and he's going to order fewer the next week, and he's going to order fewer the following week, and it's supply and demand.
Yeah.
And I've been explaining this to people in front of pet stores forever. But if that breeder has a bee market for those puppies, did it matter that I was turning them away from the pet store? In my heart, yes, it did matter.
Yes.
But those puppies could still be sold somewhere else and that breeder isn't necessarily downsizing like I wanted. Like, the intention is to make those cruel and inhumane places obsolete.
Yeah.
But if they have this market, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, the money's still trickling back to them and keeping it in that puppy mill industry and not really forcing the change, for sure. I think that brings us back to, like, auctions were also a big topic when we brought this conversation to our volunteers. And, like, just from my experience as well, going to a dog auction, there are rescues there that go and they do bid on dogs. And I think that was a big point from our volunteers and from, like, our standpoint. Like, there's an ethical way to get dogs out of auction, but it's not spending hundreds and thousands of dollars on them. It's like driving down and taking the ones that really, like, aren't selling, aren't going anywhere. And that's like different than going and putting money back into the industry, because these dogs are still being auctioned off and the money is still going back to breeders that maybe it shouldn't be going back to, so that they can stay
and we
in
track that
business.
too, and we can see some patterns of breeders who are constantly selling at dog auctions. And so the question can be made, are breeders breeding to sell at the auction? Because we don't have record of them selling to pet stores or online yet. And so have we also created this secondary market of breeders who specifically only sell in that one outlet?
Still lucrative, so might as well do it. Like,
The definition I want, and maybe this can't be done, is what's the definition of rescue? I feel like for public, I would love the public to understand the definition of a rescue. And so, again, this is neither here nor there and not what we're talking about today, but greyhounds. So I'm on my third greyhound. And often when we're out walking, people be like, oh, did you rescue her? And that's a tough question for me, because I'm like, well, she's retired.
Like, I
adopted her. Like, to me, rescue, and I'm not going to talk about the greyhound racing industry. That's a topic for a different day. To me, the word rescue is she was in a bad situation and I helped get her out of it. That's a rescue, right? If we talk about, if I came to work and I was like, oh my gosh, I rescued Alexis on the way up, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, what happened to Alexis? What did you have to rescue her from? So I think that the public, when they hear the term rescue, I rescued this dog, this group is a dog rescue, there's a rescue in the news, it's because there was an awful situation, whether that's a puppy mill or a shelter who's going to euthanize the animal or a hoarder. These animals were in crisis and needed rescued. And so as a rescue, when I get a dog from that organization, my perception is that dog was in a crisis situation and it has now been rescued. So is that a valid definition of rescue? Because now my brain is like, so when does a rescue stop being a rescue? Because going to an auction and buying overstock, is that a rescue? If the dog is at the breeder, that's not a great environment for it to be in. So we're getting it out of that bad environment. Are we rescuing it? But by rescuing it, we're creating demand for more dogs to be in that environment.
It's a circle.
When does rescue stop being rescue? When do we stop saying that is not a rescue? Like, if you just went and bought 100 puppies from a breeder, you did not rescue those puppies, even though they were in a bad situation.
It's a hard thing too, especially like talking to people in the rescue world.
Sorry.
No, it's
spinning right now, like literally spinning.
I while I've been out tabling too, I've had people come up to me and from rescues and talk about the auctions, and sometimes they do feel like them going is the only way that they are going to help those dogs, because like what's the alternative? And I think the alternative they think is like these dogs are going to be put down. So there are rescues out there that are doing it because they really feel like they need to maybe pay whatever the cost to get dogs out, because the alternative is like them being put down or like something worse than like.
But the reality is dogs are dying everywhere all the time. And so like I understand, and will say we are not a monolith. Everything we're all saying, we're coming at from our own like perspective. And in our volunteer group it was the same way. So it turned into a really massive conversation. And there were people who were like, if you're saving an adult dog, if you're saving a dog from a puppy mill, thank you. And I don't care how you did it. And there are people like that. So for the rescues that are going, and that's how they feel, it's their obligation to tell the public and the donors. I think that's where my hang up is, right? It's the transparency of it.
Do it however your model says makes sense to you, but be transparent about what you're doing.
Especially if you're using other people's money that they gave to you.
Right.
And from a business, I mean, to go back to like, we don't want to advocate for animals to be euthanized. Like don't hear that message. But from a business perspective, if that breeder, if that's the solution and that breeder has to euthanize a bunch of dogs, that breeder is going to breed fewer dogs.
That's the theory. That's the goal.
Business.
Like, get rid of that bee market. Don't be an outlet. And that's hard for people because it's like we have to sit with being uncomfortable with the current situation to hopefully get to a better outcome. And I think that makes a lot of people like hesitate fully committing to this.
Understandably.
Because it's a hard choice to make, to know that animals have to suffer now for them to hopefully in the future be better.
But it's not that hard of a thought process when everyone cares about legislation and they're thinking about how long it takes for bills to pass and stuff, right? So like when we're working on legislation, we know that's not a quick fix.
No.
We know dogs are suffering in the meantime. Like working on the Prop B issue in Missouri, like that was a huge process, knowing that it would help dogs in the future. It wasn't going to help dogs right then. And so like trying to get the rescues or whoever in this space to realize like, right now things are hard, but if we don't put boundaries and stuff in place now, it's going to keep spiraling out of control. Like there's got to be some guardrails we can put in place now.
The more we have these conversations, I am so jaded by legislation at this point because everything that's passed, folks find a way around it. People are smart and crafty, and whether it's breeders or rescues or consumers, they're going to find a way around it. And so I just keep coming back to capitalism.
My favorite topic.
Legislation is like, fine, like absolutely, we have to have the laws, right? We have to have the laws, but you can't rely on that because people are going to find a way to do what they want to do. It doesn't matter if it's breeding or if it's anything else in this country. We are a crafty bunch of people and we are very creative and we are very ornery and we love to find ways to do what we want to do.
And follow the letter of the law or the spirit of the law.
We need the legislation, but also we got to lean into like, I feel like when I talk about like this is a business and I talk about people as consumers and everyone's like, ew, that's so gross. I'm sorry, it is. I know you love your dogs and I know you like to kiss their little toes and they're part of your family. They're also a commodity. They just are in this country. And these breeders are in a business. And when you hurt their business, that's what's going to make them change. And that either comes from pressure on the breeders or it comes from consumers being more educated to understand. And so then I think that circles us back to the topic of transparency. And these groups, however you're doing it, what is your obligation to communicate to your supporters? This is how your donations are being used. This is how your adoption fees are being used. This is where these animals are coming from and why. And being open and honest about that. And without, regulation in that industry, there's no one to make them be transparent.
And that's the other hard part. So like we're very much the FAFO group. Like we're like, okay, you're going to do what you're going to do. Sooner or later, it's going to catch up with you. And we file complaints and we bring people into compliance. And it's like, this is a weird thing because if we're seeing stuff that we think is charity fraud, ethically, we should be filing complaints because we think it's charity fraud, right? Like that's what I would do if it was Jack's puppies doing their sham rescue nonsense. And so like that was kind of a discussion in our volunteer group too. It's like, without causing harm, we don't want to send pitchforks out to these nonprofits and to people who are in their minds. I don't know if they feel like they're doing their best or if they have some people I do think they've found a way.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're in it necessarily to rescue. I think like the New Jersey example is a great one.
Yeah.
It seems like a lot of flipping puppies. We don't see many adults in that situation
No.
either.
Yeah.
But I can see ways that legit good-hearted rescues can go down this path.
Yeah.
I can totally see that door
So we
opening
were-
and it feeling like it makes sense to them.
Right. And we were talking about that earlier a little bit. So like when people come to me and they're like, oh my gosh, you have like an English Mastiff. Can I adopt one? And I'm like, yeah. So here are a few English Mastiff groups locally that you can like sign up to be on their list or whatever. The more people, and this is just a general example, but the more people that sign up to foster English Mastiffs gives that Mastiff rescue the ability or the thought maybe to go and look for Mastiffs in need. Because there are always Mastiffs in need in shelters and in other rescues. What we are noticing is that as groups get more people on their list and as groups have access to more breeds of dog, they are now almost shopping for that list. And so there was a group that I adopted a dog from, I won't say which, but they go to dog auctions regularly. And they will post in their foster group and say like, hey, this is the list of dogs. Let me know which one you can foster. So they would post a whole catalog and then say, let me know what breed, what age, what size. And it's like, oh, you're allowing people to shop now. And like, it was just that very uncomfortable, like, where is the line is what we keep coming back to.
I can devil's advocate, like if they know they're going to come back with 20 dogs from this auction, setting aside whether they should be going to the auction and buying the animals, they know we're going to go get 20 dogs. I would say, let's talk to our fosters and see which ones we're going to have the easiest job. I don't want to bring back 20 dogs and have people be like, nope, I'm not taking it.
But
right?
were those the dogs that actually needed rescue?
Yeah. Are we going to ignore the
Right.
ones that were in need, the ones that
Again, these are all
stay there?
businesses. The rescues are also businesses, right? And so they have to. So I can see where we get here.
Mhm.
It's a slippery
Ay,
slope.
ay,
And again,
ay.
it goes back to that, like, what guardrails does your group have in place? So
Yeah.
one of our volunteers, she commented, I won't say what rescue she's with, but she's like, we have a no buy policy. We will not give any money for dogs. Yes, we get some breeder dogs sometimes, but we are not paying for them. Those are breeders that are downsizing because they're in trouble or whatever is going on. And they were very firm. Like,
And she said they've gotten pushback on that as well,
Yeah.
if I remember right.
So saying that's their policy.
Yep.
And they should loudly say that. I think they should loudly brag about their policy as they don't buy dogs. Because there was a massive shift around 2017. There was an article that went out in Washington Post. I think it was 2017. But it was about dog auctions and rescues buying at auctions. And there were examples in there of rescues who were spending $500,000 buying every dog at a dog auction because it was their breed of dog. And so Alexis and I, it's such a, okay, I'm going to get into it really quick. It was a breed specific auction. It was a bunch of, at the time, now they're a rescue, but at the time it was enthusiasts. And they loved this breed. It was some breeders. It was just some adoptees. They decided to pool their money and get every dog out of this dog auction because it was their breed. They fundraised. They couldn't get enough. They kept fundraising. They finally got, and they were, the way dog auctions work, it's so interesting. They put 5 dogs on the table. This matters to the story. Put 5 dogs on the table. And if all 3 of us are bidding, it's like $50, $55, $75, and we go up. If Alexis wins the bid at $150, she can choose 1 dog on that table, 2, 3, or all 5.
For that price.
For that price.
Each.
For that price.
You started talking about, I just have to say, for people watching on YouTube, in case my face just did a thing, like you started describing the dog auction, and I really just want to be like, I don't want to hear this. Don't talk about it. Don't tell me what happens at a dog auction. I don't want to know what happens at a dog auction.
No,
But,
it'll
okay.
be.
It's okay. I'm doing all right. I'm fine.
It's okay.
Okay.
Bare minimum.
I'm hanging in there.
Most people, when they're regular auction goers, and this is like the breeders in the audience, if $150, that's pretty high. $150 for a dog, pretty high. So they would pick their favorite on the table, and then bidding starts again at 0. Then you go up, right?
For the remaining 4.
For the remaining 4 on the table. What was happening at this auction, and happens sometimes when rescues want a specific breed, they just keep taking the table. So if they win the table at $1,000, 1 dog for $1,000, they're taking the table at $1,000 because their goal was to get all of them at no matter the cost. And so the thing to this day that everyone laughs about in the pet industry, everyone, is the fact that this rescue, we know the Amish man who bought 2 of the Cavaliers that day. And he was going down the road, and the auctioneer called him and said, hey man, I've got an offer for you. This rescue wants to pay $10,000 per dog.
Mhm.
And the breeder, he was like, nope, haha. He was literally like, no, they're not going to get this dog. We principle for him at first. Yeah. He was like, no, they're not going to get these 2 dogs, like whatever. Called him back. He's like, they're serious. Or have you gone too far? He's like, you should come back. The auction company convinced him to turn around and sell $20,000, 2 dogs for $20,000 to a rescue. But they were able to go on Facebook and say, we got them all. And then it was celebratory. And so that was the turning point in dog auctions in general.
Yeah.
But that was a huge focus of this big article that was talking all about like essentially the ethics of rescue. And so that really started a divide in the, I would say, Midwest auction buying community, the rescue community, because people immediately were like, we just shouldn't go anymore. We need to just block out this market and stop. And others were like, I'm going to get my breed of dog if it's there and you can't stop me. And so that's what we're facing, right? It's not just people going and getting $5 dogs. I've gone to dog auctions, especially since, starting Bailing Out Benji. My first dog auction, I bought 3 dogs for like $5 a piece. Is that unethical? Absolutely not. Those dogs were matted and they needed out. The breeder was closing. Do I still feel weird about buying dogs? Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But $5 is a token. Yeah. That's but like,
what are they going to do with $15 into their facility? Like,
and that's kind of like, what's the tipping?
Is there
what is the dollar amount?
Right, but that was like, back in the day when rescues were going, you could get dogs for pennies.
Yeah.
And now we are seeing, and I think the prices have kind of gone down a little bit too because of just the nature of the world. But now we are seeing rescue organizations going to have that be their primary source of dogs, and we are seeing breeders selling and that being their primary way of selling. And so it's like, have we created a market?
Yeah.
And if we're trying to shut off the cruelest industries or ban dog auctions or whatever, who are our allies in that? Who really wants to help us with our goal of shutting down puppy mills? Or have they really realized this is good for them and that's what their organization's going to do? But this is where the term retail rescue came in.
Yeah.
So that's not a term we defined. It truly came into these city council meetings, these ordinance meetings, where the pet industry was like, well, that's retail. They are flipping these dogs. It is a retail rescue. And so now that's where the birth of that new term came in. And that's why people are even more confused. You've got the sham rescues, you've got retail, and we just kind of say unethical because that's what we...
So retail rescue is a rescue that buys dogs.
That gets breeder dogs. Like, buys
breeders.
them. And that's how the pet industry has kind of defined that.
Pet industry,
But when we are going, like truly, when we're talking to these people, they say bee market so easily. They're like, oh yeah, it's a bee market. And then they stop and go, oh, rescues. So they have labeled, like we are the bee market.
Yes, they figured something out.
And so they're just like rescues. Like they have to correct themselves to remind us that's who they're talking about. Because it's so commonplace for them.
Yeah.
But now they know it's a lucrative place to go and they're going to keep doing it.
Like you said, the rescue with that firm, we do not buy. Again, I think the general public doesn't know. If that rescue, the general public doesn't, I don't think the perception is that rescues buy dogs from breeders. So for a group like that to say, we refuse to buy any dogs, would cause me to say, okay, if you're saying that, then that means others do.
Yeah.
And now I'm asking questions that I didn't even know to ask before.
Yeah.
So now when I'm looking at a rescue, I want to know, where did this dog come from? How did you get this dog? And I understand, I don't think that they have any legal obligation to be honest with me. They could tell me whatever they wanted, but at least it educates people again that this is a thing that happens. Wow.
And truly, in our volunteer group, people were kind of all over the place. Like, there's not an easy, this isn't clean. And even us talking about it, I know we're going to make some people uncomfortable with the conversation, but like, it's just happening. It is what it is.
Yeah.
And
it's what we're seeing behind the scenes. And that's also, it's not talked about because no one was really looking at this. And we can talk about it because we look at the records and it wasn't the original intent of us looking at those records, but it just happened to be something that we started seeing a pattern with. And so now it can be more of a conversation and more light can be shed on it because now there can be research on it and it can be a topic of discussion based on like, hey, what is actually happening?
And there is that spectrum of like, you know, this is what we would consider like pure rescue. there's this where we're like, that feels a little off and we don't quite know. And then there's, this is definitely not okay.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like that spectrum, like anything, we can address this is definitely not okay. What you're seeing in New Jersey and like Jack's, like, this is definitely no. We are, whatever your pure rescue is, that's it. And then those people in between, it's just kind of that education piece where it doesn't feel great. I see what you're doing. I understand how you got there. I personally don't agree with this. Like, and then just keeping that door open to have conversations to make sure people are thinking. So when you talk about like these breed specific rescues and that temptation to go buy up that breed because there's people that want it, and just like,
I'm laughing because you literally just like verbatim said what probably 4 episodes ago, where you're like, man, these breeders, like there's a spectrum and we have to educate. Like, that's it, right? It's the same thing. We all exist on a spectrum.
Absolutely.
Yep. And we can't just say like adopt, don't shop, because there are a lot of adopt places out there that are not as ethical as we wish.
No.
And they may be hoarders or selling sick dogs, whatever those things are. So, but it's funny because truly, this is how we talk about educating the public about buying dogs.
Yeah.
And now, unfortunately, we also have to talk about the other side.
No matter how you're getting a dog, you should research before you adopt or shop. And that's why we say adopt or shop responsibly, because we see that spectrum.
And you know what? Prior to just that exact second, that phrase in my head was adopt or shop responsibly.
Nope.
No,
it's adopt or shop.
It's adopt or shop.
Or
Either way,
yeah.
Be responsible, be intentional.
Yeah.
Gosh.
I know.
And we just want things to be easy.
Everyone.
Right? We just want things to be simple.
Yeah.
Someone just drop a dog in my house this afternoon and I don't have to worry about it. But no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think
it's so
for
hard.
people listening, because it is confusing, like I think that it's important for anyone to know, like, you have a right to ask questions. And even when that article came out, we were in that article, the Washington Post one, because we protested pet stores, and one of our volunteers on her own with her rescue bought a bunch of dogs at the auction. And so they brought up the hypocrisy of Mindy Callis is saying adopt, don't shop, and her volunteer is shopping. And so we were, looped into that. And I had to very loudly say, yeah, that did happen, but I have no control over what other nonprofits do. Like, we don't buy dogs, right? We're not even an adoption agency.
Yeah.
But we had to answer questions, hard questions for months and months. And then that article went away. And so it's like, if you're on social media and you see rescues literally getting puppies all the time, you have a right to ask, especially if they say, oh, these dogs came from commercial breeders. Are they just that outlet for commercial breeders? Are they paying for those dogs? Like, I think that we need the public to be asking these questions because we can't be everywhere at once.
Right. And the public needs to know enough to even understand what questions they should be asking.
Yeah.
And that's where I feel like when I do tabling events and we talk about things like our interactive map and things, that's where I feel like the folks who aren't already in this world, just the random people that are getting dogs, that's where they feel the most grateful, when they feel like, oh my gosh, like I knew I should be asking questions, or I knew something felt weird, but I had no idea like what even to ask, or what can I ask, or when I ask, they, the pet store or the person I'm talking to online gets really defensive, or they immediately are like pulling the transaction. I'm like, well, I just asked a question and now I'm not going to get my dog. And like, so to be able to put people in more of that position of power, where I feel like I know more, I feel like I know what I'm talking about. That to me
But we're already begging to adopt dogs. Like from rescues specifically, and not all, but rescues typically have harder adoption policies.
Okay.
And so you're already in a place of, can I please have your dog? Like, you're filling out the applications. Sometimes there's an application fee. You're trying to get the home visits, trying to get approved. Like, you're begging. So you're not thinking to ask questions.
No. Yeah. And I'm going to bring it back to capitalism again. As you should be an informed consumer, because whether you're adopting or shopping, like, you should care where your money's going and how it's supporting wherever you're putting your money, whether it's supporting that rescue or wherever you bought your puppy from. Be informed. Know where your money is going towards, essentially. Is it helping animals, or is it going to a harmful side of the industry that perpetuates unethical behavior.
I really don't know how to end this
What a
one.
thought-provoking episode.
It is.
And that's what we hope. I don't know, because we don't have definitions, clear definitions for
We don't
some
have
of these
answers.
things.
Right.
Or answers, yeah. We're just
This is one of those where like all afternoon after we're done recording, I'm going to be at my desk and I'm like, and another thing. And what about this? And then
Yeah.
there's going to be a part
Part
four
four,
to
I
this
know.
series
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I keep asking questions.
But I do think people are surprised to know that we can track what groups are doing, whether or not they're breeders or rescues.
Yeah.
Like there are things that we see, trends that we notice,
Yeah.
and then it makes us think a little differently, but it also gives us a huge perspective
Mhm.
yeah.
on the puppy acquisition market.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a whole system, and just so everybody knows, we look at everything.
Yeah, this is a systemic issue,
Yes.
right? Like,
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
what we keep saying. Like,
Yep.
be kind to people, be ruthless to systems. This is that other systemic
Yep.
problem we're seeing, and we don't have a good way to fix it.
And we have seen, as we talk about legislation, we have seen if you don't have a full comprehension of the problem, you're not going to pass effective legislation.
Exactly.
So you can pass legislation that you think is addressing the problem, but if you're not looking at the whole landscape,
Yeah.
you're missing out. And so
Yeah.
we really, I almost feel like have pulled back to, okay, we've got to wrap our brains around this entire landscape to even know how to move forward. And we talk about it as whack-a-mole. Like you think you've got a handle on it over here, and then you realize while you were looking here, this whole thing's happening over here.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like our focus lately hasn't been, we're going to do this. It's been more like, we've got to understand this to
Yeah.
even know where do you start to be effective in doing anything.
Right.
Yeah.
And until we can get everyone to see the scope of everything that's playing into this problem, it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yes.
Anyway, this is your plug to keep supporting the small
Yes.
nonprofits.
Yes.
And,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, when we have these hard conversations specifically, like it does make some people not happy because they might feel like we were targeting them in this conversation, but that's not it. I mean, we dropped one rescue because they're, I mean, truly, like
You
the
guys
New
should be
Jersey
aware
Attorney
of that.
General is
They've earned
looking into that.
Yeah,
at this
that
point.
one's a
Yeah.
please look out, please don't support. I have heard some very sketchy things.
Right. But it's like, so just so anyone listening knows, it is hard for us now when people come to us and say, Alexis, is this place legitimate?
Yeah.
And that is a loaded question.
Yeah.
And so anything anyone listening can do to help us make that question easier, that's what we need. We need rescues to have more transparency, clearer adoption and acquisition policies, and then just really help your adopters feel confident so they're not coming to us and asking questions. Because when people come and ask questions is when you're on someone else's radar. So handle that stuff yourself,
Yeah.
right? Be as clear and professional as you can,
Yeah.
or they are going to start filing complaints elsewhere.
Yes.
And that's not a headache you want.
And be self-reflective of, like, I want to say, like, have these conversations with us because I love having conversations, but like be open to those conversations about, like, because I ask relentless questions. So if I come across a rescue and I'm going to say, how do you get them? And if they say like, oh, well, we bought these from this person, I'm going to keep asking you questions. So like, if you're open to having those conversations, it helps both of us work through why you're doing what you're doing. And are we both okay with it? And then as that rescue group have those conversations, the volunteer that mentioned their group is strictly no buy, like their leadership made that choice. So like every organization, Bailing Out Benji does it. Any organization needs to have that self-reflection of, okay, are we still good? Is this our mission? Is this what we're wanting to do? And like work through those things and just keep, maybe today it's yep. And then in a month from now, we're like, it's starting to feel weird. Like just keep being self-reflective and trying to stay on mission. And if you can justify why you're doing what you're doing and you feel good about it, and you know, I don't know.
Yeah. It's just too much, right? And we won't ever have the right answers, but transparency helps everything and it helps everyone feel comfortable.
Yeah. And in the end, if we're trying to help dogs, then let's keep that the focus.
Yes.
And yeah.
Well, thank you all so much. Please, if you learned something new, donate, follow us on all the socials, and we'll talk to you next week. Bye.
Bye.